Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going to take a deep dive into information security and audit through the lens of a CISA exam.
Ooh, that's right.
Yeah, so we've got questions 31 through 60
Okay.
from an actual CISA exam. That's Certified Information Systems Auditor,
Right.
for those who are new to this.
Yeah, these are the questions that really separate the security novices from the pros. It's pretty fascinating, I think. It gives us a peek behind the curtain at what it really takes to, keep sensitive information safe.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Question 31 throws us right into the thick of things with electronic funds transfers, or EFTs, and it asks about the specific combination of user profiles in an EFT system that would make an auditor, raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
Maybe even two.
Well, what's interesting here is it's not just about the individual roles, but it's about the potential for combined access that can create a real security headache.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had 3 users who could capture and verify messages from other users, but also had the power to send their own messages.
Oh.
That's a lot of control concentrated in just a few hands.
Right.
And that's where an auditor would start to get really concerned.
It's like having a system where the security guard can also open the vault and make deposits.
Exactly.
Just a recipe for potential disaster.
Yeah, you want to avoid those single points of failure, right? And make sure that no one person has too much power within a system, especially when it comes to financial transactions.
Right.
Segregation of duties, that's key.
Okay, segregation of duties. Got it. All right, question 32. We're shifting gears now to the broader topic of risk management.
All right.
What's the absolute most important thing to consider when reviewing a company's risk management process?
It's tempting to get caught up in frameworks and complex methodologies, but I think the real heart of the matter is communication. It's absolutely crucial that those IT risks are communicated in a way that everyone, especially decision makers, can really understand. So we're talking about translating those technical vulnerabilities into real-world business impact. Dollars and cents, potential disruptions, reputational damage. That's what resonates. That's what resonates with the people who are, holding the purse strings.
It's about making cybersecurity everyone's business, not just the IT department's problem.
Precisely. You need buy-in from the top down to create a truly effective risk management culture.
Okay, buy-in from the top. Okay, question 33 hits on a scenario that's probably more common than we'd like to admit.
Oh, yeah.
New employees sharing passwords to log on to an application. Big no-no, according to company policy. What's the best way to tackle this problem?
It's not enough to just have a policy tucked away in some employee handbook. People need to understand the why behind those security measures. And that's where security awareness training comes in. It's about educating employees on why those password policies exist, the potential consequences of not following them, and really empowering them to be the first line of defense against security threats.
So it's about turning security into a habit, not just a rule book.
Precisely.
Okay. Speaking of rules, question 34 asks, what should always be included in an organization's information security policy? What's the cornerstone?
The absolute core of any information security policy is the basis for access control authorization. Think of it like the constitution of your digital world. It needs to clearly define who gets access to what information, why they need that access, and how that access is granted and revoked.
It's about building that digital fortress on a foundation of clear rules and strong authorization.
Exactly. Without that, you're essentially leaving the door wide open to potential breaches and misuse.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble. Okay, question 35 brings us to the world of financial institutions and their love for automated controls. Apparently, they've got a system where branch managers have to approve transactions exceeding a certain amount. What kind of control is that, and why is it so important in that setting?
That's a classic example of a preventative control. And it's all about nipping those potential problems in the bud. So in this case, it's designed to prevent unauthorized or excessive transactions by requiring that extra layer of approval. Think of it as a safety net before any funds actually leave the account.
So it's like having a second set of eyes on those high-value transactions, making sure everything is on the up and up.
Precisely. Especially in environments where even small errors can have big financial consequences. Those preventive controls are crucial.
Okay. All right, question 36 talks about something called SANs.
Okay.
Storage area networks. These are basically high-speed networks for storing data. An auditor is looking at a SAN where data is isolated.
Okay.
Unused ports are disabled, and only the administrator has access.
Okay.
Sounds pretty secure. Right?
While those measures are certainly a good start,
Okay.
the fact that only one person has access to the system is a major red flag.
Okay.
It creates a single point of failure and a huge risk for unauthorized changes or even malicious activity.
Okay.
Remember, segregation of duties is paramount.
So even in a super technical area like SANs, those good old-fashioned security principles still apply. It's all about checks and balances.
Absolutely. No matter how secure the technology is, human error or malicious intent can always be a factor.
Right.
That's why those multiple layers of control and oversight are so critical.
Okay. Question 37 brings us to the Capability Maturity Model, or CMM, which is a framework for assessing software development processes.
Right.
What's the big deal about using the CMM?
So the CMM helps auditors determine if a software development team is following a predictable and repeatable process. It's about ensuring that development isn't just a chaotic scramble, but a structured and well-documented process, which ultimately leads to higher quality and more secure software.
So it's about bringing order to the sometimes wild world of software development, making sure everyone's on the same page and following those best practices.
Exactly. And that consistency is key for minimizing errors, reducing vulnerabilities, and delivering software that meets user needs and security standards.
Okay, consistency is key. Got it. On to question 38, which is about IT steering committees.
Okay.
These are those groups of high-level folks who oversee IT strategy.
Right.
What should their main focus be when reviewing information systems?
So their primary goal should be to ensure that those IT processes are supporting the business requirements.
Okay.
It's about making sure that IT isn't off in its own silo, but rather acting as a strategic partner to the business. So are technology investments delivering tangible value?
Right.
Are systems aligned with the overall business strategy? Those are the questions they should be asking.
So it's about keeping IT aligned with the big picture.
Precisely.
Making sure technology is serving the business, not the other way around.
It's about that crucial link between technology and business outcome.
Okay. Question 39 throws a bit of a technical curveball at us. What is the most critical component when it comes to network management?
Well, while things like monitoring tools and network maps are important, the foundation of effective network management is configuration management. It's about having a deep understanding of all the hardware and software components in your network, their configurations, and how they all interact.
It's like having a detailed blueprint of your entire network.
Exactly.
Knowing exactly what's connected, how it's configured, and where those potential vulnerabilities might be.
Without that level of control and documentation, managing and securing a network can be like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded.
Right. You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 40 takes us back to a familiar scenario.
Okay.
A company that's outsourced production support to another country. Their support team connects remotely over the internet.
Okay.
What's the best way to ensure that all that sensitive information, whizzing back and forth during those sessions is secure?
The gold standard here is a VPN tunnel.
Okay.
A virtual private network.
Right.
It creates a secure, encrypted connection over the public internet, essentially building a private tunnel through a public space.
Right.
It's a must-have for any company dealing with sensitive data remotely.
So it's like putting all that sensitive data in an armored car before sending it across the internet highway.
Exactly. And with the rise of remote work and global teams, VPNs are more essential than ever.
Okay. On to question 41. We're diving into the world of website restrictions, which is something many companies grapple with.
Right.
What's the most effective way to enforce those restrictions and keep employees away from those time-wasting, potentially risky corners of the internet?
Well, the most effective way is to use a web content filter.
Okay.
It acts as a gatekeeper, blocking access to websites that are deemed inappropriate or risky based on predefined categories or specific URLs. Think of it as a digital bouncer for your network, only allowing access to the good stuff.
I like that analogy. The digital bouncer, making sure everyone stays on the straight and narrow. All right, question 42 shifts gears to compliance testing.
Okay.
An auditor is trying to figure out if the controls in place actually support management's policies and procedures.
Right.
What does this kind of test reveal?
So this type of test helps the auditor determine whether the control is operating as intended and effectively mitigating the risk it's designed to address. It's about making sure the control isn't just for show, but actually doing its job.
It's like making sure the safety net is actually strong enough to catch someone if they fall. Speaking of controls, question 43 brings up an interesting situation. An auditor finds that some IT policies haven't been formally approved by management, even though employees are diligently following them. What should the auditor do in this case?
Well, the auditor should highlight the importance of formal approval to management. While it's great that employees are following the policies, that official stamp of approval ensures accountability, consistency, and reduces the risk of misunderstandings or disputes down the line. You know, it's about making sure everyone's on the same page officially.
It's like making sure that rule book is officially signed off on, even if everyone's already playing by the rules.
Exactly.
Question 44 takes us to business continuity planning, or BCP. A company with a solid IT disaster recovery plan has created a formal BCP and run a basic tabletop exercise. What's the next step in testing their plan's effectiveness?
So the next level of testing would involve a walkthrough of predefined scenarios involving all the key players. You know, this allows for a more realistic simulation of how the BCP would play out in a real emergency, testing the response and coordination of different teams in various disaster scenarios.
It's like taking the BCP out for a test drive, simulating a few bumps in the road to see how the team handles it.
Exactly.
Question 45 deals with a classic problem. Errors creeping into an accounting application. An auditor discovers output errors, which seem to be stemming from errors during the initial data input stage. What control should they recommend to management to prevent these errors from happening in the first place?
So in this case, the auditor should recommend something called limit checks. These checks ensure that any data entered falls within a predefined range or meets certain criteria. It's like having a filter that catches those inaccurate or invalid entries before they can mess things up.
So it's like having a built-in spell checker for data entry. Making sure those numbers make sense.
Yeah, you want to catch those errors at the source rather than dealing with the consequences later on.
Right, at the source. Question 46 takes us to the world of data warehousing, where performance issues can be a real headache. An auditor discovers that query performance in a data warehouse tanks at certain times of day. What kind of control is most relevant to review in this situation?
So the control to look at here is something called user spool and database limit controls. These controls help to manage resource allocation and prevent individual users or processes from hogging system resources during peak times.
It's about making sure everyone gets their fair share of the data warehouse pie. Preventing any one user from bogging down the system.
It's about optimizing performance and ensuring everyone has access to the data they need when they need it.
All right, on to question 47, where we delve into the world of software audits. An auditor needs to figure out if any unauthorized changes were made to a program since the last update. What's the most effective way to do this?
The most reliable method is an automated code comparison. This involves comparing the current version of the code with a known authorized version, highlighting any discrepancies or changes that might have been made without proper authorization. It's like a digital detective comparing fingerprints to identify any tampering.
So it's about having that digital paper trail, making sure any changes to the code are tracked and accounted for.
Speaking of cracking, question 48 is all about naming conventions for system resources, which might seem a little mundane at first. Why are those conventions so important when it comes to access control?
Naming conventions are critical because they provide a clear and consistent way to identify and manage access to system resources.
It's about eliminating ambiguity and making sure everyone knows what's what. It's like having a well-organized filing system where every file has a clear label and a designated place.
So it's about bringing order to the digital chaos, making sure everything has its place and is properly labeled for access control. Question 49 asks about those rare situations where an organization might need to implement an emergency change to an application.
Right.
What would warrant such a drastic measure?
Emergency changes are typically reserved for situations where there's a high probability of significant impact on operations. Think of it like hitting the panic button when a system is about to crash and burn. You need immediate action to prevent major disruption or damage to the business.
So it's about those critical situations where you need to bypass the usual red tape and take swift action to keep things running.
Exactly.
Okay, question 50 takes us back to testing. This time, it's about testing employee access to a financial system. What's the most reliable evidence an auditor can gather to support their findings?
Well, the most reliable evidence would be a list of accounts with access levels generated by the system itself.
Right.
This provides an objective snapshot of access permissions directly from the source, rather than relying on potentially outdated or incomplete documentation.
It's about going straight to the source of truth, getting that unfiltered view of who has access to what. Speaking of security, question 51 deals with sender authentication.
Okay.
Which method provides the most reliable assurance that you're actually communicating with the person you think you are?
So the most reliable method is digital signatures. They use cryptography to verify the sender's identity and ensure that the message hasn't been tampered with in transit. It's like having a digital seal of authenticity, providing that extra layer of trust.
So it's like a digital fingerprint, confirming the sender's identity and the integrity of the message. Question 52 brings us back to business continuity planning and the all-important question of recovery time. What factors should an organization consider when figuring out that acceptable time frame for resuming critical business processes after a disruption?
You know, both downtime costs and recovery costs need to be carefully considered. It's about striking that balance between minimizing the financial impact of the disruption and the resources required to get back up and running quickly.
It's a delicate dance, weighing the cost of downtime against the cost of recovery, finding that sweet spot where business impact is minimized. Question 53 shifts our focus to the IT strategic planning process. What's the most important thing an IS auditor should ensure when reviewing this process?
The auditor should ensure that the plan clearly articulates the IT mission and vision. This ensures that IT initiatives are aligned with the overall business strategy and contribute to achieving the organization's goals.
So it's about making sure IT is rowing in the same direction as the rest of the company.
Exactly.
Not off on its own tangent.
It's about that alignment.
Okay, alignment. Question 54 highlights the importance of integrating business continuity planning into IT project management. How does this integration benefit IT projects?
So by considering BCP aspects early on, IT projects can incorporate those necessary redundancies, failover mechanisms, and recovery procedures from the get-go. It's about baking resilience into the project from day one.
It's about thinking about those what-if scenarios from the start, making sure the project is built to withstand those potential disruptions. Question 55 asks about the best way to help information owners classify data properly. What's the key ingredient here?
Well, the key is comprehensive training on organizational policies and standards. Information owners need clear guidelines and training to understand those different data classifications, their associated risks, and the proper handling procedures for each category.
It's about equipping those data owners with the knowledge and tools they need to make informed decisions about data classification and protection. All right, question 56 brings us to a nightmare scenario. A laptop belonging to a database administrator containing a file of production database passwords has been stolen. What's the immediate action the organization should take?
The first and most crucial step is to change the database password immediately. This cuts off access to the crown jewels, even if the thief manages to crack the stolen passwords.
It's about damage control.
Exactly.
Minimizing the potential impact of that security breach. Question 57 takes us back to the world of audits. An auditor is reviewing a software quality management process. What's the logical first step in this process?
So the auditor should begin by requesting all the standards that have been adopted by the organization for software quality. This provides the baseline for understanding the organization's approach to software quality and the criteria against which the process will be evaluated.
It's about understanding the ground rules before assessing the game. Question 58 asks about the most critical factor for evaluating the effectiveness of an IT governance implementation.
Okay.
What's the key ingredient here?
Well, the most critical factor is determining stakeholder requirements and ensuring their involvement.
Right.
Successful IT governance relies on clear communication, collaboration, and alignment between IT and the business stakeholders it serves.
It's about making sure everyone has a voice at the table and is working towards those shared goals. All right. Question 59 tackles the importance of backups, specifically for online systems.
Okay.
What's the key consideration here that often gets overlooked?
It's crucial to ensure that periodic dumps of transaction logs are being performed.
Okay.
These logs capture a record of all changes made to the database, allowing for granular recovery in case of data corruption or system failure.
So it's like having a detailed journal of all the activity in your online system, allowing you to rewind and replay specific transactions if needed. And finally, we've reached question 60 for this part of our deep dive.
Great.
What should an IS auditor primarily verify when reviewing a disaster recovery plan?
The most important thing to verify is that the plan is regularly reviewed and updated.
Okay.
A disaster recovery plan is not a static document.
Right.
It needs to evolve as the organization's infrastructure, applications, and business requirements change.
It's about making sure that plan isn't gathering dust on a shelf somewhere, but is a living, breathing document that reflects the current state of the organization. We've covered a lot of ground already, from electronic funds transfers to disaster recovery planning.
Yeah, it really is a testament to the wide range of knowledge and skills required to excel in the field of information security and audit.
You've got that right. We'll dive into the next set of questions in just a bit, so stay tuned for more insights from the CIA exam.
It really is a fascinating field, isn't it? Constantly evolving as technology and threats change. All right, let's jump right back into those CISA exam questions with question 61. We're dealing with a situation where an organization's disaster recovery test revealed a bit of a problem. Their recovery time actually exceeded the target they'd set.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
No, not ideal.
So what should the IS auditor recommend in this scenario? Sounds like a time for some serious reflection and maybe even a bit of a revamp to that recovery plan.
Yeah, it's not about panicking, right?
Right.
It's about getting analytical. The auditor should recommend a thorough review of all the recovery tasks. Imagine it like a pit crew analyzing every second lost during a pit stop.
Yeah.
They need to break down that entire recovery process, identify any bottlenecks or inefficiencies, and find ways to streamline each step, so they can hit that recovery time target.
So it's about optimizing that recovery process, finding those areas where precious time can be saved.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Question 62 takes us to the realm of IT strategy. What's the most crucial factor for an auditor to consider when evaluating an organization's IT strategy?
Well, the auditor needs to determine if the IT strategy truly supports the business objectives.
Okay.
It's about making sure those technology investments and initiatives are aligned with the overall business goals and contribute to the organization's success.
It's about ensuring that IT is a strategic partner, not just a cost center.
Precisely.
I love that. Now, question 63 takes us into the world of audit trails, those digital breadcrumbs that track activity within a system. What's their primary purpose?
Audit trails are all about establishing accountability.
Right.
They provide a chronological record of who did what, when, and where, which is crucial for investigating security breaches, detecting fraud, or even just understanding how errors occurred. It's like having a digital detective on the case, able to retrace those digital steps.
Speaking of detective work, question 64 takes us back to risk management. It asks, which risk management practice is most likely to expose an organization to compliance risk? What's the potential pitfall here?
It might seem counterintuitive, but the riskiest practice is actually risk mitigation. While it aims to reduce the impact or likelihood of a risk, it doesn't eliminate it entirely.
Right.
And that means there's still a chance of non-compliance, especially if the mitigation measures aren't implemented or managed effectively.
So mitigation is a step in the right direction, but it's not a foolproof guarantee of compliance.
Exactly.
Got it. Question 65 presents an interesting dilemma. At the end of a software testing phase, an auditor finds an intermittent software error that hasn't been fixed. What's the auditor's responsibility in this situation?
So the IS auditor should recommend escalating the issue. Ignoring the error or leaving it to the development team's discretion isn't really an option, as it could have significant implications down the line.
Right.
Escalating it ensures that the issue gets the attention it deserves and is addressed promptly.
It's about ensuring those potential problems don't slip through the cracks.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 66 takes us to the physical world of tape libraries. These are those rooms full of backup tapes.
Oh, yeah.
What's a reliable way to verify the accuracy of those tape inventory records?
Well, the most effective way is to do a good old-fashioned physical count.
Really?
Yeah. It might seem low-tech,
Right.
but it's crucial for ensuring that the physical tapes actually match the records, verifying the completeness and accuracy of that inventory.
Sometimes those simple, tried-and-true methods are still the best.
Absolutely.
Okay. Question 67 tackles a common challenge: replacing a legacy system with a new one. In this case, it's an ERP payroll system. What's the best way to ensure a smooth transition and user acceptance of the new system?
Well, the best approach is parallel testing.
Okay.
This involves running both the new and old systems simultaneously for a period of time, comparing results and ensuring the new system functions correctly before completely switching over. It's like having a safety net before you take the big leap.
I love that analogy. It gives you that peace of mind and knowing that the new system is working as expected before you fully commit.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 68 ventures into the world of biometrics, using unique biological characteristics for authentication. It asks about a specific type of attack.
Okay.
Where someone might use leftover biometric information to gain unauthorized access.
Yeah.
What kind of attack is this?
So this is a mimic attack, a clever exploitation of residual biometric data, like fingerprints or facial scans, to impersonate an authorized user.
Oh, wow.
It highlights the importance of not only collecting, but also securely handling and deleting biometric information.
It's like a high-tech version of forging someone's signature.
Yeah.
It's pretty unsettling to think about the potential implications.
Absolutely.
Question 69 takes us back to those everyday financial transactions we all make. It focuses on a credit card transaction capture application.
Okay.
And asks us about the likely function of an initial validation control in that kind of application.
So that initial control would most likely verify the format of the credit card number entered and check if it exists in a database. It's a basic but essential step to weed out those obviously invalid or fake credit card numbers.
It's that first line of defense against potentially fraudulent transactions.
Precisely.
Okay. Question 70 brings us back to the broader topic of controls. What's the most important thing management should ensure before implementing any controls?
Management needs to make sure that any controls implemented actually address a specific risk identified through a proper risk assessment. Controls shouldn't just be implemented for the sake of having them.
Right.
They should be strategic and targeted.
It's about making sure those controls are purpose-built.
Exactly.
Solving a real problem, not just adding unnecessary complexities.
Right. You don't want to create more problems than you solve.
Exactly. Question 71 is about database referential integrity.
Okay.
Ensuring relationships between different tables in a database. What should an auditor review to provide assurance that referential integrity is being maintained?
Well, the auditor should focus on the foreign key structure.
Yeah.
Foreign keys are crucial for maintaining those relationships between tables.
Right.
Ensuring data consistency and preventing orphaned records. They're like the glue that holds a relational database together.
So it's about making sure the database is structurally sound with those relationships between tables properly defined and enforced.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 72 explores the benefits of embedding an audit module right into an online application system during development. What's the primary advantage of doing this?
So the main benefit is the ability to collect audit evidence as transactions are being processed in real time. This provides continuous monitoring and the ability to detect any anomalies or suspicious activity as it's happening.
It's like having a built-in surveillance system for your application.
Exactly.
Keeping a watchful eye on everything that's going on.
You've got it.
All right. Question 73 asks about the importance of gathering sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Why is this so crucial for an IS auditor?
Well, it all boils down to having a solid foundation for the auditor's conclusions and recommendations.
Right?
Yeah, those findings need to be based on objective, verifiable evidence to ensure the credibility and validity of the audit results.
It's about backing up those findings with solid proof.
Precisely.
Okay. Question 74 takes us to a scenario many companies face. Securely disposing of sensitive data on a former employee's laptop before it's reused. What's the most effective method to ensure that data is truly gone?
The best approach is to overwrite the hard drive sectors with random data. This makes it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to recover any previously deleted data. It's like digitally shredding the hard drive.
It's about ensuring that data is truly gone for good. Okay. Question 75 brings us back to the world of data centers. An IS auditor is reviewing a feasibility study for a brand new data center. What should be their primary concern?
Well, the biggest red flag would be if the organizational impact of the project hasn't been thoroughly assessed. Building a new data center is a major undertaking with potential ripple effects across the entire organization.
Right.
You know, it's crucial to understand those impacts before giving the project the green light.
It's about making sure that new data center fits seamlessly into the organization's operations.
Precisely.
Okay, question 76 compares two approaches to software testing, bottom-up and top-down. What's the advantage of using a bottom-up approach?
So a bottom-up approach focuses on testing individual modules or components first before integrating them into larger systems.
Okay.
And this means that interface errors are detected earlier in the development process, making them easier to fix.
It's like making sure each piece of the puzzle fits perfectly before assembling the whole puzzle.
Exactly.
All right, question 77 takes us to the realm of HR policies, specifically mandatory vacation policies. Why would an organization implement such a policy from a security and audit perspective?
So the primary reason is to identify any potential errors, inconsistencies, or even fraudulent activity that might be hidden when a single person handles a process for a long period of time.
Okay.
You know, when an employee's on vacation, someone else has to step in, and that can often reveal irregularities or gaps in processes.
It's like a forced system checkup when someone's out of the office.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 78 focuses on the risks of implementing application software packages. These are those pre-built software solutions that companies often use. What's the biggest risk to watch out for?
The biggest headache is ending up with multiple uncontrolled versions of the same software floating around the organization. This can lead to compatibility issues, complicate support and maintenance, and even increase the risk of security vulnerabilities.
It's like trying to run a company with everyone speaking different languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a recipe for chaos and miscommunication.
A recipe for disaster.
Okay. Question 79 asks about the most important requirement for a robust change management process. What's the key ingredient for success?
The most important requirement is individual accountability.
Right.
Every change made to a system should be clearly linked to the person who made it, providing a clear audit trail and ensuring responsibility for the change's impact.
So it's about making sure every change has a name and a face associated with it, promoting that transparency and accountability.
Precisely.
Okay, question 80 takes us to the retail world, where a company is using RFID tags to track products. What's the primary concern from an IS auditor's perspective?
So the primary concern with RFID tags is privacy.
Okay.
RFID tags can be used to track individuals without their knowledge or consent, which raises concerns about data collection, storage, and potential misuse.
It's a classic example of technology outpacing privacy regulations, creating potential ethical and legal challenges.
Absolutely.
Okay. Question 81 brings us back to disaster recovery. In the event of a catastrophic data center failure, what's the best strategy for achieving complete recovery of a critical database?
So the most effective strategy would be real-time replication to a remote site.
Okay.
This involves continuously mirroring data changes to a secondary location, ensuring minimal data loss and a faster recovery time in case of a disaster.
It's like having a constant backup of your most valuable data.
Right.
Ensuring business continuity even in the face of a major disruption.
Precisely.
Okay. Question 82 shifts our focus to project management. An auditor is reviewing an organization's process for managing multiple IT projects. What should they review to understand the effectiveness of the controls in place for managing those projects?
Well, the auditor should dive into the project portfolio database. This database provides a centralized view of all active projects, their status, resource allocation, and interdependencies. It's like having a dashboard view of the entire project landscape.
It gives the auditor that big picture view of how projects are being managed and where the potential risks might be lurking.
Precisely.
Okay. Question 83 takes us back to the world of software testing. Which testing approach is best for identifying those tricky internal application interface errors early in the development cycle?
Well, the most effective approach for this is bottom-up testing.
Okay.
It focuses on testing individual modules and their interfaces before integrating them into larger systems, which means those interface issues are identified and addressed early on.
It's like making sure all the gears mesh smoothly before you start the engine.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 84 asks about the most effective way to test an organization's compliance with change control procedures. What's the key to a thorough audit here?
Well, the auditor needs to go beyond just reviewing documentation.
Okay.
They need to actually identify specific changes that have occurred and verify that those changes were properly authorized.
It's about following the trail.
Right.
Making sure the proper procedures were followed for each and every change.
Exactly. You want that accountability.
Okay. Question 85 brings us back to that company that outsourced production support to another country. What's the most reliable way to ensure that only authorized users from the service provider can connect to the company's systems?
So the best way to achieve that level of assurance is through two-factor authentication.
Okay.
This adds an extra layer of security by requiring users to provide two forms of identification, like a password and a unique code from a token or their phone. It's much harder for unauthorized users to get past that double layer of security.
It's like having a double lock on your network door.
Precisely.
Question 86 tackles the ever-present threat of social engineering. These are those clever tactics used to trick people into revealing sensitive information.
Oh, those are tricky.
Yeah. What's the most effective way to protect against these attacks?
The most powerful weapon against social engineering is security awareness training.
Right.
By educating employees about common social engineering tactics like phishing emails, fake websites, or manipulative phone calls, you empower them to identify and avoid those threats.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to outsmarting those social engineers.
Absolutely.
Okay. Question 87 asks about the primary benefit of an IT manager diligently monitoring the technical capacity of their systems. What's the ultimate goal here?
Well, the main benefit is to ensure that the organization can meet its service level agreements, its SLAs.
Okay.
By keeping a close eye on system capacity and performance, IT managers can proactively address any potential bottlenecks or issues before they impact service delivery.
It's about making sure those systems are humming along smoothly and meeting those performance promises.
Precisely.
Question 88 talks about something called a stop or freezing point in the design of a new system. What's the purpose of establishing this point?
So the stop or freezing point is a critical milestone in a project. It marks the point after which any changes need to be carefully evaluated for cost effectiveness. It helps to prevent runaway scope creep and ensures that changes are carefully considered in terms of their impact on the project's budget and timeline.
It's like putting a price tag on every new idea, making sure it's worth the investment.
Precisely.
Okay. Question 89 asks about the best placement for a network intrusion detection system, an IDS. A company wants to use an IDS to protect its website. Where should it be installed?
So the best location for the IDS is in the demilitarized zone, the DMZ. This is a network segment that sits between the internal network and the public internet, acting as a buffer zone. Placing the IDS there allows it to monitor traffic coming from the outside world without exposing the internal network to direct attack.
It's like having a guard post at the edge of your digital fortress.
Exactly.
We're getting close to the end of this set of questions. Question 90 focuses on an e-commerce website that stores customer data for 6 months after a transaction before deleting it. What should be the IS auditor's primary concern in this scenario?
Well, the primary concern is the confidentiality of that customer data.
Okay.
Storing sensitive information on a web server for an extended period increases the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches, especially if the security controls aren't rock solid.
It's about making sure customer data isn't hanging around longer than necessary, minimizing that exposure to potential threats. Okay, final question for this part, question 91. It asks about the entity responsible for managing the life cycle of those digital certificates that are so crucial for secure digital signatures in e-commerce transactions. What's the name of that entity?
That's the role of a certificate authority, or CA.
Right.
They're the trusted entities responsible for issuing, managing, and revoking digital certificates, ensuring the authenticity and integrity of digital signatures used in those online transactions.
They're like the digital passport office for the world of e-commerce, verifying identities and issuing those digital credentials. They really are the gatekeepers of trust in our digital world, huh? Okay, so let's dive into question 92. We're talking about the documentation for a business case used in an IT development project.
Okay.
How long should that documentation be kept around?
Well, documentation can pile up quickly,
Yeah.
so it's important to have clear retention policies.
Right.
In this case, the documentation for the business case should be retained until the project receives final approval.
Okay.
Once the project gets the green light,
Mm-hmm.
the focus shifts to execution, and the business case has served its purpose.
So it's all about keeping things tidy and relevant.
Exactly.
Now, question 93 takes us to the courtroom. What's absolutely essential for ensuring that those digital logs are admissible as evidence in a legal proceeding?
Well, the key here is log integrity.
Okay.
It's not enough to simply collect logs.
Right.
You need to demonstrate that those logs haven't been tampered with.
Yeah.
Having a system in place to verify their integrity is absolutely crucial for ensuring their admissibility in court.
It's like having a tamper-proof seal on those digital records, proving they're the real deal.
Exactly.
Okay. Question 94 asks about applying a retention date to a file. What's the purpose of doing that?
Well, applying a retention date ensures that the data won't be deleted before that specified date. It's a way to enforce data retention policies, making sure that critical information is kept for the required period, often due to legal or regulatory requirements.
Just like setting a digital expiration date, but for preservation instead of deletion.
Exactly.
Okay, question 95 brings us to a data center that uses a badge entry system for physical security. What's the most important factor in ensuring that system is effective in protecting the valuable computing assets inside?
So the most critical aspect is having a clear process for deactivating lost or stolen badges promptly, even with physical security measures like badge readers and entry logs. A lost or stolen badge can provide unauthorized access if it's not deactivated immediately.
It's like cutting off access to the master key before anyone can misuse it. Now, question 96 presents a scenario where an auditor discovers that a service provider has outsourced some of its work to another provider.
Okay.
And this work involves confidential information. What should be the auditor's primary concern?
Well, the auditor should be most concerned about the potential compromise of confidentiality.
Okay.
When outsourcing work involving sensitive data,
Right.
it's crucial to ensure that the third-party provider has adequate security controls in place and that those contractual agreements clearly define responsibilities for data protection.
It's about making sure that data security doesn't get lost in that outsourcing chain. Question 97 throws us a bit of a curveball. What happens if an IS auditor stumbles upon a virus while conducting an audit?
Well, the auditor's responsibility is clear. They should inform the appropriate personnel immediately. Containing a virus outbreak requires swift action, and notifying the right people, like security or incident response teams, is crucial for a prompt and coordinated response.
It's like sounding the alarm when you spot a fire. You need to act quickly to contain the damage.
Yeah.
Question 98 explores those reciprocal agreements that some organizations use as a recovery alternative. What's the best way to mitigate the risk of relying on these agreements where organizations essentially agree to help each other out in case of a disaster?
So the most effective way to reduce risk is to ensure that those partnering organizations are geographically separated.
Okay.
This minimizes the chance of both organizations being affected by the same disaster, providing more robust recovery options.
It's all about spreading that risk, not putting all your recovery eggs in one geographical basket. All right, we're on the home stretch.
Right.
Question 99 asks about the role of the domain name system, or DNS, in a client-server architecture. What's the key function DNS provides that we all rely on every time we use the internet?
So DNS acts as the internet's phone book, providing name-to-address resolution. It translates those human-readable domain names into numerical IP addresses that computers use to communicate, making the internet much more user-friendly.
It's what makes it possible for us to type in google.com instead of having to remember a string of numbers.
Exactly.
Okay, question 100 dives into the technical details of digital signatures. What process does the sender use to create that digital signature?
So the sender uses their private key to encrypt a message digest, which is a unique fingerprint of the message. This encrypted digest is the digital signature, and it can be verified by the recipient using the sender's public key. It's a clever way to guarantee both the authenticity and integrity of a digital message.
It's a bit like adding a personalized encrypted seal to your message, assuring the recipient it came from you and hasn't been tampered with.
Precisely.
Okay, question 101 brings us back to those pesky performance issues. An auditor discovers that users are experiencing long login times to a CRM system during peak hours, even though the system's response time is fine once they're actually logged in. What's the likely culprit here?
So the slow login times suggest a bottleneck during the authentication process.
Okay.
The auditor should recommend establishing clear performance measurement criteria for those authentication servers to identify and address the root cause of the delay.
It's about setting those performance expectations.
Exactly.
And then measuring to see if those expectations are being met. Okay, second to last question, question 102. It paints a picture of a hotel providing internet access to guests through a public PC in the lobby. What's the biggest risk for identity theft in this scenario?
You know, the biggest risk in that situation is a lack of session timeout.
Okay.
Without a session timeout, a user could walk away from the computer, leaving their session active and vulnerable to unauthorized access by the next person who uses the PC.
It's like leaving your front door wide open after you leave the house. Just a recipe for trouble. Question 103 asks about an IS auditor evaluating programmed controls for password management. What's a common and effective method for evaluating those controls?
One of the most reliable methods is a validity check.
What?
This type of control ensures that any password entered meets certain criteria like minimum length, complexity requirements, or the exclusion of common words, enforcing stronger password policies.
It's about making sure those passwords are strong and difficult to guess, adding that extra layer of protection. All right, we're down to the final question. Question 104. An auditor is reviewing a software application built on service-oriented architecture, or SOA. What's the logical first step the auditor should take to understand this complex type of architecture?
Well, the auditor needs to start by getting a clear picture of the services that make up the SOA and how those services are allocated to business processes.
Okay.
Reviewing the service repository documentation is a crucial first step.
It's about getting a map of that SOA landscape before you start your exploration. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the CISA exam. We've explored a wide range of topics, everything from the nitty-gritty details of controls to the strategic importance of IT governance and risk management.
Yeah, you know, it really is a testament to the breadth and depth of knowledge required to be successful in the field of information systems, security, and audit.
Absolutely. And you know what's really fascinating is how these concepts go beyond just passing an exam. They have real-world implications for organizations of all sizes across all industries.
It's about protecting sensitive data, ensuring business continuity, and building trust in a digital world.
So, dear listener, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of CISA, and that you've walked away with some valuable insights and a renewed appreciation for the importance of information security and audit. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep diving deeper.